Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to NAUI's Dive Team Report. I'm your host, Greg Martin. You know, one of the coolest things about being a diver is being able to see what lies below. That's usually the biggest question I wind up getting when I'm out at a dive site. You know, what do you see down there? You know, and there are so many cool and wonderful dive locations all over the world. Now, I don't want to slight the incredible oceans that we have because I love to get out in the ocean and dive out there, but there are some incredible places to dive inland. And I, like you, maybe learned to dive in a rock quarry many years ago. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience in that quarry down in Missouri. I've asked Don Markham to come and talk to us a little bit about some dive locations in Florida. And I know Don talks about diving locations in Florida. Everybody wants to go to Florida to go scuba diving. But you do a lot of inland diving, right?
Yeah, Greg, I sure do. One of the things that folks forget, it's not the best kept secret anymore because the word's starting to get out. But
sure.
Everybody heads south to the Keys, and everybody goes to the East Coast to West Palm Beach. But they fly right over top of north central Florida, which is cave country. We've got all the freshwater springs up here. It's crystal clear water year-round. The temperature remains consistent year-round. It's always 72 degrees. So even in the winter months, when it gets a little chillier outside, you can jump in relatively warm water as compared to, you know, you were mentioning the rock quarries up in the Northwest and up in the northern part of the country. I learned how to dive in a quarry too, but the water up there is 42 degrees, 50 degrees.
Yep.
Down here in Florida, you get a constant 72 degrees year-round.
What are you wearing, like a 3 mil most of the time?
Yep, I'm mostly in a 3 mil. Sometimes if I feel froggy, I'll jump in with a pair of neoprene shorts and maybe a 5.3 hooded vest. But yeah, it's usually a 3 mil. Some folks jump in with a 4 or 5 mil.
Yeah, it always depends on the person. I know diving up here in the Pacific Northwest is almost across the board, dry suit diving, but there are some brave souls that, you know, do 7 mils and that kind of thing. If you see somebody in a 5 mil up here in the Northwest, they're either crazy or they're still crazy.
Sure. Oh yeah, yep.
So you run what you call Don's Diving Academy. Now, talk a little bit about that, Don.
Well, Don's Academy of Diving, I am an independent instructor. I do offer open water, the basic gamut of the NAUI courses: open water, rescue, nitrox, advanced diver. I do the specialty courses. I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm headed back up to Michigan this winter, and I'm going to teach a ice diving course back up in Michigan where I'm from. So I'm going to bring a bunch of Floridians up to the cold and show them what it's all about.
Did I mention crazy?
Yeah, I think you did.
I just wanted to make sure I did, yeah.
Also, I do a lot of dive touring. I am affiliated with a lot of the local springs down here in north central Florida. Have dove them many times, very intimate with the dive sites. So when folks come down into north central Florida and say, hey, what's the springs all about, I can give them a good intro, take them into the springs, and show them a lot of things that they might miss otherwise just going to the site by themselves and jumping in the water.
You know, I learned about the springs, Don, when I was a child watching late night horror shows, and I learned about a place called Crystal Springs, where they shot the and my mind just had the Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Oh yeah, Creature from the Black Lagoon. Yep.
And you know, you watch that show, and you see the surface shots were all shot on a little pond they had on the back lot in Hollywood, but all the underwater shots, which were absolutely crystal clear, were shot down there. And I understand they don't allow diving only every once in a while at Crystal Springs, but there are other places, and you mentioned a couple like the Blue Grotto and Paradise Springs. Talk a little bit about those, because these are unusual dive sites.
Yeah, the Blue Grotto right here in Williston, Florida, is it's got a pretty good size upper basin area that is outside of the overhang from the main cavern. They do allow open water training there because it is an open water area at that point. They have training platforms down there. at 15, 20, 25 feet deep, so the open water students can get down there and do their skills. There's the main cavern area is huge. It's probably from bottom to top is 60 feet high and a couple of 100 feet wide, and you can great lighting, and everything is crystal clear inside the main cavern. You don't really need a light, although if you had a light, you would be able to spend some time along the walls and check out all the fossils and the really interesting rock formations inside the main cavern. Another really interesting draw to the Blue Grotto is they have an underwater dive bell attached to the ceiling of the main cavern at 25 to 30 feet, and they feed it with fresh air, so you can actually go down at 30 feet, come up inside this air bell, and have a conversation with your fellow divers and talk about where you want to go next.
That's an interesting kind of concept, because it's you always get down there and you have a plan and you're supposed to dive your plan, but for some reason that plan always seems to change, right?
Oh, sure. Everything changes. So and then you can leave the bell, and then they have the lower cavern has a guideline on it, and it goes all the way down to 100 feet. And then you follow the guideline back up. Now, once you get down into the lower cavern area, you kind of lose your direct line of sight to the opening to the spring, so it is dark down there. But because it's a guided line tour, an advanced diver with some basic cavern knowledge could do that dive very easily.
It's interesting. You don't have to have an overhead environment certification of any sort, of cave diving certification to do that.
No, and that's the really neat draw to some of these springs. There are springs that are purely cave diving and cavern diving certifications. You can't get in them without it. But there are a handful of local spots like the Blue Grotto and Paradise Springs, and even Ginny Springs, that you can get into as an open water diver and enjoy the main cavern area of the spring with just a little extra knowledge. Most of your advanced divers have enough training and enough equipment usage to be able to go into these main caverns. You're not going past the famous Grim Reaper signs or anything like that, and you're never leaving the site of the opening of the cavern. And most of them are very well lit. So yeah, with I don't want to say minimal training, but without having a caverns or cave diving certification, there are a few sites that you can get into. Very nice.
Very nice. Well, the next time you think about going diving and you're heading down to Florida, and maybe you're not going all the way to the coast and you thought maybe you'd get some diving in, you still can. You can give Don a call and talk to him about some of those locations. I've never had that opportunity, Don, and I'm going to come see you one of these days because I want to get into that water. It sounds fantastic.
It is. It's absolutely fantastic. And once you leave the coast, come up from Key Largo or Marathon down in the Keys or even West Palm Beach, make the stop up here in north central Florida to the freshwater springs and give your gear a really good rinse before you head home.
There you go.
Get all that salt water off from it.
Now, have you got a website for your business?
I currently don't have a website up and running, but I am on Facebook with Don's Academy of Diving. So if you want to get on Facebook, folks, give me a like and follow me along. I do post pictures quite regularly and let you know what's going on down here in north central Florida.
All right. Sounds great. Don Markham, thanks for joining us today, and we'll look forward to maybe getting in some crystal water with you.
Great, Greg. Thank you very much, and it's been my pleasure.
All right. Hey, if you do like listening to the podcast, I'd love to hear your comments. Email me, podcast@naui.org. And of course, if you have an interest in learning to dive or maybe becoming a cave diver, getting that advanced certification, be sure and check out NAUI.org, NAUI.org, or your local NAUI dive shop. And that's this episode of NAUI's Dive Team Report. I'm Greg Martin. Thank you for listening. I'll see you underwater.